Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745, and we are still pushing across North Africa rather effectively, I would say. Coming around this way, and that's doing well. We're getting ready to become a bit more aggressive again in the Pacific. So, everyone, please stay around. And I get tired hearing it when I watch other people's videos. I get tired of saying it, but call to action seems to work. It really helps if you can lick the like button, and if that subscribe button is red, smash it and subscribe to the channel. And of course, it super helps to have you guys comment on the videos. So if you would, tell me how great I am. I gotta be great because I'm on YouTube. All YouTubers are great, aren't they? I mean, we at least think so in our own minds. These guys, okay, they're doing okay. You guys can get up to air intercepting again. Okay, so these guys are now officially cut off. I think you'll stop there to keep that off. Region HQs, very good, advancing, and we'll let that go because we're going to start researching effectively 45 technologies. Coming after some of our... Let's roll here. Okay, we got efficiency there. Okay, the South Africans want interceptors. Certainly, they can use our models. You can have rare materials, and we'll buy fuel for this way. You guys keep coming this way. guys can race into Torbrook. But yes, you can have energy. You guys don't know. You're not. Okay. You need to race to Tobruk with your armored division. Cavalry, just motorized cavalry, but oh, you're attached way off to something. Somewhere way far away. No, never mind. We're slowly getting headquarters coming, but it's not moving as way as it should. Well, they're back there further. Where is the... Oh, these guys have made it here. Okay, well, these guys have actually made it here. Very good. Garrison troops, obviously. But you sort of going. What is... Oh, here it is. My big transport fleet. And hello from Facebook. Need your victory somewhere. Probably up here or there. Uh-huh. Yeah, we'll get fuel from you. We'll sell you supplies, I guess. Start heading you back west across the Pacific. Not the Pacific, boy. Across the Atlantic. Yeah, I sort of kind of vaguely know where I am, but not maybe entirely. You move up. And you keep moving up. You need to keep moving up as well. Gasoline engines advanced. Very good. Advanced. Okay, let's stop the somewhat over researching. Just keep pushing while the pushing is good. I'm just a little worried about getting to some place like El Alamein and being faced with a lot of fortifications left over that the British made and the Italians are using. So I want to keep racing across here as fast as we can go. Okay, support for our allies. This is, I could say of course, but if you don't know, I have foreign aid and air bases mod, which was one of my first mods to make. I'm still rather proud of it. There's game engine limitations to this game, obviously, and one of them was the inability to build stuff in Allied territory. So it started out from the German perspective, but I looked around at the Allied perspective too, of where you might want to have, particularly air bases, but do some other support elements. So, do we send aid and build bases in Madagascar to help them support the war efforts? So, Ansturiana, which I believe is here, yes, here, they do have 2-level airbase currently, and I don't know what it was originally when I decided to put this here, but now we can do this or not, but I think we will, even though the fuel won't be nice to lose that. Supplies we can well afford. And so now they have a bit better air bases up here. Not that that is particularly important, but other ones are like in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, just in places that you might think you would build just a basic level of air base. To support air operations. Okay, now we're going to run into trouble, I think, because we're now liberating British territory, and I don't know that we're going to be able to supply well enough. See how that goes. But maybe we'll capture enough supplies from the Italians. Another armored division and more aircraft, things that use up fuel, but then again, I did make a few divisions that don't use fuel. Maybe we could do some more air. That's sort of an easy decision. Big transport fleet. Okay, they're coming slowly, but still coming through the area here. Now, hopefully these guys have gotten some decent organizations. So, you come to here, I guess. Let's the Atlantic quickly. Australia, yes. We could use the money. Right down. You keep pursuing these guys. How many armored divisions do you have in North Africa? Oh boy. One there, the 7th. I think it may be just the 2. Proper armor. We do have this cavalry division, which has light armor. Those are now motorized cavalry, so no longer on horses or anything, but so 2 proper, a couple of almost, because we have a, no, I think this one here is a mechanized, no tanks, but it is a mechanized division. So far this is going very well. Okay, since this is going reasonably well here, what we're going to do is push up to here with these guys. Help the British out some. Help ourselves out some. Okay. Well, they've created a pseudo Courland type situation up here. If the Germans have transports, which is maybe a big if, but if they do, they'll be able to supply that relatively well, but they're being pushed back pretty hard. Though this has got to be distracting the Soviets somewhat, pushing down into here. So that's probably saving the Germans a bit. Hello, Johan. How you doing? Well, very good to hear. I love to hear that type of feedback, whether you're getting, people, whether they know that it's happening or they don't get notified, but somehow still know that it's happening. So that's very good to hear, Johan. I'd love to know that type of feedback, how YouTube is doing with everything. I hope you're doing well. Good to hear, good to hear. Now that I'm on to British supply lines, but maybe we're eating up Italian supplies that I'm a little more worried about putting too many divisions into North Africa there, or continuing to go that way. Okay, we need to deploy those. Yeah, we could do another armored division. Okay, we got some Marine Corps divisions here, but mechanized battalion. Yeah, let's do this proper. Just motorized engineer. And yeah, we'll go half-track support. Okay. So that's going to be 47 ICs, so that's going to be pretty big as it is. Increase back up a bit our supply production. There we go. Getting more convoys coming, some more escorts. Still, of course, taking losses there. Now, perhaps you in the Pacific. Here we are. No. Let's rebase them here then. Small warship air search radar. Good. Yes, well, okay. Yep. Gotta get around El Alamein. You guys, well, okay. Armored division come this way. Alexandria. Yeah, I cannot run supplies through to Alexandria, so that is sort of the problem here. Then again, I am fighting the Italians, so that may not be that big of a problem. We'll see how that goes. Extra wide tracks. Okay, stop that. We're already, well, okay, no, I don't think we'll buy supplies from France. We will sell you crude oil, though. And air landing infantry, that should be one and done. And basing advance, okay, we'll let that continue, because naval basing efficiency also helps supply throughput in ports. And that is still critical. Start doing those. Light tank model, because you already know the Pershing is the heavy tank model. Okay, it's still the M5 Stuart. We've yet to get to the Chaffee. And yes, it's still the Pershing here. Let's keep moving this way. Hey Larry, how you doing? Let's see. Wondering if you could give me some advice on how many ICs I can build pre-wars USA in a normal difficulty game. Not could or should. Well, you can see here I have a base of 314, and this is too low. I expected with the current back ice, but I found out this is 10.1 or 10.2 or something. I forget exactly. I don't know, 11.1 or 11.2. But I've been informed that they've removed what had been earlier on in 9 point whatever before events that would ramp up U.S. ICs. So I think it's way underdone. So you should probably have 400 plus base ICs, meaning ICs, and those, and we, I don't know if that counts anything captured here in North Africa, but you should have more than that. I am way low. I am underpowered. This is literally the first time I've played the United States at all, this playthrough, so I'm learning a lot. I expected to have more events that would ramp up ICs, and I'm disappointed. I was informed, and I knew that, oh my god, he's a really excellent player. He's made the game more challenging for him, but he's made it unhistorical, which was the original raison d'etre for... Oh, we took out a Bulgarian submarine here. Raison d'etre for Black Ice in the first place was to make it more historical. Now, okay, took out a long-range Japanese submarine. Now, of course, I hope you know to concentrate your ICs in places and then build up the heavy, because as the US you can build heavy ICs and build those up because those are a modifier. I think it needs to be a minimum of 4 before they become profitable, because they cost more and take longer to build than regular ICs, but they're a multiplier effect. Definitely by the time you get 6 or more regular ICs in the province, they're a good idea to do so. Concentration is good as America, especially since you're not likely to really be bombed much. So the reason in Germany you want to spread your ICs out in a way is so that bombing damage isn't concentrated, but also the more you spread it out, the more you need to spread out your anti-aircraft guns. So it's all that sort of balancing out. So yeah, build a lot of ICs, I guess, is the short answer. And I believe whatever you can build, you will not match historical America. Because if you look at how many destroyers, how many carriers, how many battleships they had in production, I think if I were to go to, like, we'll look at 1943, and I don't know all the date or all the faction figures, but if we were to put all of the submarines, all of the destroyers, all of the PT boats, all of the carriers, battleships, light cruisers, heavy cruisers, all of that into production, I don't think we would have enough ICs, even with 700. I don't think we would. And realize America, by around, I think, 1944, they have approximately 100 divisions overseas. Okay, 100 divisions. I mean, I might have 100 units here because all these spammed out HQs that I've got around here. Some of them are, flavor HQs for yet to exist armored division. Others, are core HQs. I may have 100 counters on the map here somewhere, but they had 100 divisions deployed, and I think it was in 44. They decide to cap the max expeditionary armies of the, and that does not include the Marine Corps divisions, mind you. But they decided to limit it at 100, and I think it's just more of a decision, because obviously 100 is too round of a number. But the limiting factor is basically Liberty ships, or shipping that allows you to support the divisions. Not so much deploy the divisions, but to support the divisions. And realize that, and so they, between the Pacific Theater, which, and the China, Burma, India Theater, the CBI, MacArthur's push up through the Philippines, Nimitz coming across here. Now, Nimitz, like on some of these, I'm not saying there aren't other army divisions around, but I think like in Guam, I think it's like 3 army divisions he has along with his Marine Corps divisions. So he has just a few, army divisions. Huge numbers of, naval units. But you're looking at that, so the Pacific and CBI and all that, that's a bit light. So it's, European theater, a bunch more, is supplying them, because Britain, a lot of the food for British divisions is coming from India, or coming from Australia or New Zealand, that are operating out here in the Pacific. Now, a lot of them, of course, are Australian or Indian units, but I'm sort of lumping in all of the British Empire together for the logistical support services, because basically it's the Royal Navy or the Americans. See, that's also key, is America is also transporting the food around a lot. Britain has lots of transports, absolutely. But, even though, I'm not saying like, and where this is American territory, and oh wow, we don't have a supply unit to here, and we don't have a supply unit to here, so maybe we should do those. Okay, let's see, what is Townsville? Okay, let's come to production here, create a supply convoy. We'll come out of San Francisco. Let's look for Townsville. There we go. Get them back up so that they could defend themselves if attacked. And over here, Dolly. Okay, Dolly. Create a supply will come also out of San Francisco here. Not bad. Well, that's not too bad. Maybe if we're getting supplies into here. So the ability for the Americans to supply, because basically, I think divisions here were probably getting supply, food, primarily food, not ammunition, food from Australia. But once you get up into like Guadalcanal and places like that, you're talking about the idea of American supplies coming into Australia, food, and then being shipped up to Guadalcanal, because they're using a more like assault transport types of things to get them on, onto the beach, literally onto the beach in Guadalcanal, as opposed to, the Liberty ship type transporting. So the Americans are supplying all of their needs from the U.S., as well as America is transporting things like bauxite from the Caribbean and northern South America up to the U.S. to be refined into aluminum. And they're supplying, ships for up around here for Lend-Lease to Russia, ships coming into Iran, which doing other Lend-Lease up into Russia. It's the U.S. is doing all kinds of shipping, and that takes a huge amounts of Liberty ships and personnel to be able to do this. Now, when I say 100 divisions, that isn't just like 100 divisions as well. And there's not, and of course, there's, Army and Corps HQs and whatnot. But there's also, the U.S. had a bunch of independent tank battalions. Now, a lot of them get assigned to infantry divisions. One case, it's like functionally a permanent assignment, meaning it gets assigned and never reassigned to somewhere else. So through the war, it is a permanent, but it isn't like a official a permanent, like never to be removed. But because infantry divisions don't belong, or they're infantry, and the armored divisions are the armor, and yeah, they're sort of still separated by branch of service, although the artillery is everywhere and the cavalry's around now being reconnaissance, sometimes with tanks, sometimes with armored cars. So that they're doing, all of that type of stuff. There's extra combat units like the tank battalions, independent tank battalions that are, like I say, sometimes attached to the Corps, sometimes attached to an infantry division, and then maybe shifted to a different infantry division as needed and whatnot, and heavy artillery units that are heavier than what would be normally in a division, and things like that are going on. So there's a lot of deployment for the U.S. Plus, there's a bunch. I don't know the number, but I'm sure it's more than 20 divisions sitting back in the United States. Partially, internal security, there's problems, coal miners strikes. I think it was Detroit, but it could have been Chicago, but I think it was Detroit, where there's a, they start hiring black men to run, to work on the transit system, the trolleys, and I don't know if they have any subways at that time in Detroit. I don't know Detroit well enough. But to run on that, the mass transit systems, bus drivers, whatever. And because of the type of city it's organized, these are required to get war workers, from their homes to their jobs and back every day. And so eventually, within like a week or so, the Army comes in to run the transit system. So they have units to come in, and so there's internal security operations going on in the U.S. like that. Nothing really major like the Germans are doing in Yugoslavia kind of internal security, but they are doing that stuff. So some of it is that. Some of it is to effectively give advanced training beyond basic infantry training to troops that can be sent as replacements into divisions that are at somewhere at the front, as well as the ability to in theory we really don't see, at least I don't know of a divisional size force that gets destroyed that's American. We can see a Battle of Bastogne where the airborne is surrounded and they take a hell of a punishment, of course, with that. And we see the landings at Salerno and a bunch of American prisoners. You see some video in the hundreds, literally. I forget where he was, if I ever really knew. My next door neighbor growing up as a kid was an American GI in World War II, that he spent some time in a German prisoner of war camp. I knew that about him. I was best friends with one of his sons. But he never really talked about his war career. I would have been fascinated to hear about it, but I don't know whether it was like at Battle of the Bulge or in the Salerno landings or somewhere, but he spends some time in a German prisoner of war camp. So yeah, so there's literally hundreds of prisoners taken. It's not Salerno's down here, but saying Anzio. Salerno is down here. At Anzio, because a bunch of units push, including the Rangers, push a little too deep early on, and then they get surrounded and cut off. So we really don't see, destruction of divisions, but they don't know that they're not going to have destructions of divisions. So they have more divisions ready to go. So whether rotating a division that is, really in poor shape, or if anything gets destroyed, which they don't really have. But so, there's a bunch more, and we just don't have the ICs here to do that. So yeah, and I'm going to go back up. I know I've been sort of ranting. Okay, just no veteran personnel. Right. Okay. Hello, Dorgino Made. How you doing? Also, the vast yes, Lend-Lease, the Allies. Yeah, they're doing so much of that. Moving stuff around. Can you show me what is, in your opinion, the best division templates for the U.S.? Since you're oh well, I don't know that I consider that I'm in endgame. I'm in 44, and we're still trying to take North Africa. And of course, in June 44, they just be what is it, June 5th, the day before D-Day, they take Rome, and then D-Day June 6th. So we're still sort of mid-war here, but I will show you my templates. So give you an idea. Just watching the Battle of the Bulge and the scene with the young kids in command of the Tiger tank. Oh yes, some of the Twitter sort of historians that I sort of think are good historians, they really don't like the Battle of the Bulge movie. I actually sort of like it. Now maybe it's like it for some scenes within it, but yeah, you have the kids, and that what you're seeing there, those kids, they're all in Panzer Black, but really in a way that represents a little bit more the Hitler Jugend division, which the Hitler Youth division of the Waffen-SS does also get really good equipment when it's formed and put out there. And a little side note, there's a bunch of pictures, and you're saying it making me think of it, a bunch of pictures of, like 16-year-olds, guys in tanks, Hitler Youth guys, and they're all wearing leather jackets and leather pants. And you might think, where the hell are they getting leather jackets and leather pants that late in the war? And realize leather is a significant strategic war material and is in short supply. And you need it for boots. You need it for like cartridge belts, and the cartridge pouches and such for the Germans. How are they getting all these leather stuff? Well, basically, either they buy, because I don't know how much they're actually paying money for, or because I'm not sure, or whether they're just sort of acquiring from a depot somewhere. A store of U-boat leathers, those leather trousers and leather jackets that are somewhat recut into more of a panzer wrap style, quickly I believe, were intended for U-boat crews. But this is a time well after D-Day has happened, and they've lost, the ports here, and so there's not nearly as many U-boat crews as there had been. So you find particularly the Hitler Youth guys wearing leather jackets and black leather jackets and black leather pants as sort of a uniform, with all the Waffen-SS badges stuck on it, kind of thing. But yeah, they were around. But I do like that movie as well. It's great, but just the Panzerwagen did wear. Yeah, the Panzer troops wore black from the beginning. That and sometimes people mistake it because the Panzer troops and okay, hello also Hart Smear, I guess that's how you pronounce that. U.S.A. is like Rohan, and yeah, they always enter when the war is already won. No, I wouldn't say that. The war was not won when they did. Yeah, the Panzerwaffel did wear black. Absolutely. It's a good movie, but it's a movie. I think the general in the film is meant to be based on Sepp Dietrich. Well, he's an army general, yes, but is it supposed to be Sepp Dietrich? Or is it more Joachim Meyer, the SS Panzer leader kind of thing? But the Battle of the Bulge combat troops in the SS were mostly wearing the same camo stocks that the Wehrmacht were wearing. No, actually, no. Okay. By the time the Battle of the Bulge combat troops okay. Let me give you the rundown on uniforms. I'm a bit of a German uniform, aficionado, research type person. The Panzer Corps, as it's being formed, is thought to be an elite force. It is small and hard to get into. They hearken back to the is it Hessian? Boy, when I start this, one of the principalities, and it may be the Prince of Hesse, or I think it was Hesse. But one of the no, Brunswick. Sorry, no, it's Brunswick, because as soon as I said Black Brunswickers, the Prince of Brunswick. So here we're going down the rabbit hole. Okay, Piper, yeah, not Meyer. Okay, yeah, Plastic Anger, Joachim Piper. That's it. Thank you. I do get messed up on names. Yeah, I think it's more supposed to be Joachim Piper, but yeah. Okay, so Napoleonic Wars, French Revolutionary era. But sort of Napoleon, right? More Napoleon, I think. The French Revolutionary over more Napoleon. Napoleon sort of gobbling up, reorganizing up, shall we say, the Holy Roman Empire principalities and creating new kind of stuff. Well, the Prince of Brunswick does not like this thing. He does not like Napoleon, does not like French expansionism. So what he does is say, fuck it, he's out of here. So he takes his army, he has the Brunswick army, takes his army and cuts his way basically to the coast. And if I'm not mistaken, dies in the attempt getting out there. But he gets to the coast, and they've made arrangements so that the British will come and pick them up. And they sail away basically to Britain. And so his army becomes an army in exile. I think it's theirs when he dies. But his army in exile, and then eventually the army is sent down to Spain and fights in Spain. Well, some of the units, not all, but one main unit adopts black as their color of uniform, and with a skull and crossbones for their dead prince. I think it's sort of like their lifeguards or whatever, but after he died in combat. So they're called the Black Brunswickers. And during the Peninsula Campaign, basically captured Germans, shall we say, that shows some willingness to change their coat again, shall we say, and fight the French. And it can vary from situation to situation, are sort of stuck onto the Brunswickers. So some of the units become very unreliable to the point that a bunch of them like, oh yeah, we'll fight for you, and then they go and 2/3 of them desert again back to the French. So some of them aren't terribly reliable, but they eventually get back. It gets reorganized, and then they fight again. The battle, and I'm probably getting some of this wrong. Maybe some of the guys, Hessians. No, it's Black Brunswickers. Prince of Brunswick fight in the Battle of Waterloo, and then they, get reorganized, back as part of Brunswick, and they keep the black as the continuing colors of the regiment. Well, and they're a cavalry regiment. Well, you can see some of them, maintain that all the way up until the end of the German Empire. And so they're wearing black. Well, once you organize the Reichswehr, everybody's in field gray. Then they're forming up, the Panzer Corps in early stages, and they look to the skull and crossbones and the black of these black Brunswickers that have this sort of death or glory, though I'm stealing I think it's the 17th, but I know it was omologated with the 21st Lancers of the British, who also have a skull and crossbones with a flag below, or a banner, bunting sort of banner type on it that says "or glory." So it's death or glory is the Lancers' motto, the British one. But so they sort of they adopt this, and so they're wearing black with skulls, but the skulls are different, and the cut of the badges, or the collar badges, are different for their Wehrmacht style instead of SS style. So, but they're wearing black. The SS is also wearing black until, just generally speaking, until you start to form the Waffen-SS, and they start to wear gray, but just sort of start to wear gray. But once the war breaks out in 39, basically, we can find exceptions, but basically all of the SS flips over to true gray, shall we call it true gray, as opposed to field gray of the army. It's a different tone of gray, very different tone of gray if you actually look at them. So they all flip to gray, except the SS, the Waffen-SS Panzer units, which stay with black. Now you will find in both the army and the Waffen-SS, sometimes you'll see them wearing gray, just probably clothing availability to some degree. And officers have to buy their own uniforms. They have to pay their own money, so they may not, they may continue wearing older uniforms. To the point, and it's kept as an elite unit, and it's supposed to be you're supposed to be in a Panzer to wear black. But we see photographs of like Panzerjägers, the tank destroyers, some of those guys wearing black jackets and whatnot. But if you're not in the Panzers, and maybe that's because they're attached to a Panzer division, but we see Stug drivers, which the Stugs are officially part of the artillery, wearing the same uniform but in field gray, the same sort of Panzer wrap jackets and same sort of trousers, but in field gray. They're supposed, because they're not in, although they're in armor, they're not in tanks. It's sort of weird arcane militaria. So you're going along and you're seeing this. So you see the Waffen-SS and the Panzers are both in the army Panzers are both wearing black, and so they convert over to that. And then as time goes on, yes, eventually the SS are the first to really, and before the war starts, the first German army units to really adopt what we consider camouflage clothing, the Waffen-SS, and they throughout the war have their own distinctive versions of camouflage patterns. Before the war starts out, they have sort of a half shelter kind of thing that you sort of put two of them together to make a tent, but you could also sort of put it together as a poncho. Now that is camouflaged, and sometimes you see the army soldiers wearing that as sort of a poncho kind of thing, to camouflage. Late in the war, you're starting to see made uniforms of the Army in their versions of camo, which are different than the SS camo. But the Army never widespread primarily adopts camouflage clothing. The Americans start to adopt camouflage clothing in Europe, quickly withdraw it because of mistaken identity. There's at least enough that they're worried. I guess there's friendly fire incidents or something. There's enough even for helmet covers that they're worried that they're being mistaken for the enemy, the Germans. So, and this is sort of like late 44, 45, where in the Pacific we see the Army and the Marines adopting camouflage because they're no danger of being mistaken for Japanese, who do a lot of camouflage techniques but do not have what we think of as camouflage uniforms, at least not widespread. So that's sort of what's going on. So let's go back. Hello, son. Good to have you here. One question: why isn't there any Vichy French just complete German? Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. Let me just catch up with the chat here. Reading about them now. I remember them featured. Yes, episode of Sharp. Yes, definitely. I've read all. No, there's actually a new Sharp book that I have on audiobook that I have not listened to yet. That's out within the last year or so. But before I've read everything of Sharp. But there is the newest one that I have not yet read. There were a number of German regiments in the British Army after the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha assumed the British. Well, okay, Plastic Gangster. It was the House of Hanover that assumed the British throne, not Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. It only becomes Saxe-Coburg-Gotha when the Hanoverian heiress, Queen Victoria, being a woman, can become Queen of England, but cannot become the Elector of Hanover. So they lose the Hanoverian title, and she marries Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. So that's when. But by that time, there are no longer any German military units. But there are. Okay. I hope you like a deep dive. It was illegal to have foreign military units in Britain, but they broke the law all the time. During the 1745 Jacobite risings, which I know a lot of, first they bring over a bunch of Dutch units to fight the Jacobites, but the Jacobites they literally, they don't use these words, but these words in effect: foul, 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 no fair, you can't use those troops. We have a French guy here, because those troops had been captured by the French, because this is the, I forget which, the war that's going on in the 1740s between Britain and the Netherlands versus the French, after the Battle of Fontenoy. I think actually the Dutch troops are captured at the Battle of Fontenoy, but they're released on parole so long as they do not serve against French units. So they can go back to the Netherlands, they can go back, guard the Netherlands from anybody else attacking the Netherlands, but not with the French. The House of Hanover: oh, hey, we're having a Jacobite rebellion. They're about ready to take over our country. Let's bring these Dutch troops over. They cry foul, fair, no play, can't use them. So they literally get sent back, because they literally just have like 5 or 10 French troops at that moment. Because this is when they're getting ready to go into England. So they sort of like, oh, oops, we can't use these Dutch troops anymore. So they get sent back. And then they hire, mostly from the Prince of Hessians, and they use them mostly in Scotland, which may not technically be as illegal as using them in England, to supplant that. During the Napoleonic Wars, there were a lot of exiled. Okay, now during this period of time, the British Army is the British Army. Okay, it is in Britain. The King of Britain George the whatever, because it changes over the years. Basically, George 1 through 4 is also the king of, well, the Elector of Hanover. So there's the Hanoverian army. And eventually, or at some point, most of the Hanoverian uniforms become very similar to the British Army uniforms. But they are never part of the British Army. They are Hanoverian army. They are not allowed to be deployed into Britain. So they're guarding Hanover whenever there's the British going, fighting the French during the time period. Some Hanoverian regiments show up and serve alongside the British Army, whatnot. Basically, all of that is lost with the, talking about the Black Brunswickers. Basically, all that's lost with the reorganization by Napoleon. Yes, it's reconstituted. He becomes the George, I think it's 4 by that point, becomes the Elector of Hanover again, and reconstitutes the Hanoverian army post the Napoleonic period. But again, the House of Hanover switches to the male heir, and Victoria, although the main line becomes Queen of England. So that is where you get the separation of Hanover from Britain. But there are always different army establishments, and there's not quite as radical, but there is a different Scottish army establishment. Scottish regiments and Irish regiments, which are in some cases very Protestant Irish, but Scottish regiments are their own establishment. Then English and Welsh is just part of England. Different establishments during the 18th century. Now, also during the Napoleonic War, you have a lot of exiled armies in Britain illegally. I mean, they're there, but they're not there legally. There's sort of no place else for them to go, so they get brought to Britain. Now some of them are quickly transported out, and some of them are in other parts. So they, to the point, they even have anti-British Irish regiments fighting for Britain. Now those are a lot of them down here in the Mediterranean, and half or more of the people in these Irish regiments are not Irish or even descended from Irish. They're just collections of, maybe you might call them royalists or anti-revolutionarists, or just mercenaries, paycheck, food for being, a soldier. And probably half or more of the Irish are men that never have seen Ireland and weren't born in Ireland, but they speak English with an Irish accent, and to some degree probably not educated so much in English, but speak it because that's the sort of the home language at home that they speak, but are Spanish, Bourbon, Italians, because they have their own Irish unit. There was an Irish unit that collapses up that had been there for about 100 years in Venice. A small cavalry unit, not a whole regiment or anything, that had been Irish exiles. So all these various groups that are collapsed, and Britain's collecting them. Some of them go back to Ireland. Some of them there are other German units than the Brunswickers, and there's royalist French units that escape. So that's sort of some of the over detail on all of that. Give you some of that. Okay, on the moment the Allies fight in North Africa campaign, there's already declared. Yes, as Sun is saying, there's an event that happens once there's an event that once the U.S. declares war on Vichy, there is then given an option to either allow Vichy to remain or to annex it all the territory up here in France, and that's what the AI player did. And then I conquered all of this before another event that gave all non-conquered Vichy territory over to the Free French. That's why that's why Vichy is gone. So here I'm moving into Italian territory, and the Italians had taken this territory before the peace with France in 1940. So I'm considered occupying Italian territory, where this is just given over to U.S. territory for the moment, though we can see claims by other people just sort of get that up there. I know I'm just trying to catch up with the chat here. BC French Germany, the goal is settling a province. Okay, technically, the English monarchs are German. Yes, they're. They were. Right now, the current king is. No, it's not because no, the Queen Mother was Irish. Or not Irish. Sorry, Scottish. The Queen Mother was Scottish, so that would be the grandmother of the current king. But his father was German, basically. The Duke of I'm forgetting the dukedom that they were given. But his father was German. His mother was half German, basically. The last queen. Now the first getting back to English will be is the current Prince of Wales, because through the Spencer line they actually have a closer tie to the royal family. I would consider definitely more English from Diana Spencer. So yeah, they're getting back to being Sharp as Saxons. I have it on Audible as well, but I have not gotten it. Yeah, I'm going to listen to it sometime too. So we'll see who gets to it first. So the IRA fighting under the British flag. Well, they're not IRA. They're not IRA. They're anti-IRA. They are Irish royalists. They are Jacobites. They are trying to put the Scottish king back onto the English throne. They're not the IRA. They're not the Irish Republicans. The Irish Republicans, and there was an Irish brigade. I hope you guys like this stuff. Let's see. James II loses or gets complicated, but he flees Britain afraid of being captured and killed by William the Third. Of the Duke of Orange from the Netherlands. So he flees, and then he goes back to Ireland and tries, and raises a large army there. The French send professional soldiers to Ireland to fight William of Orange in Ireland, but one of the agreements for sending these professional French soldiers was, hey, send us equal number of Irish recruits back to France, so that we can make up, we know they're not going to be well trained, they're not going to be trained troops at all, just, men willing to join up, because there's no draft. They have to be willing to join. And so they get like about 6,000 men or so at the start of this. They get sent back to France for training and equipping eventually. Well, the Battle of Le Boyne, etc., James loses to the better military commander of William of Orange, and so even more, because they're not being very kind on the Catholic Irish, even more Irish Catholic supporters flee Ireland to France. So these are formed into the Irish Brigade. And then, because they're both Bourbon kings in Ireland, or in France and in Spain, eventually some of them come down and are serving in it. And the idea with these units and then for generations, Irishmen in Ireland go to join these brigades in foreign lands, as well as the sons of the guys who've fled into exile. The idea is that these are a ready trained army, so that the next time the Stuarts get ready to get back on the throne, they'll have a ready trained army, but in the meantime they're being paid and equipped by either the King of France or the King of Spain, and served locally in their military and their wars until needed. So both of these have Irish units. When the French Revolutionary War breaks out, about half of the Irish soldiers in French service stay in revolutionary service throughout the Napoleonic Napoleon's reign, there's at least one Irish sort of regiment that, really all you can sort of distinguish them is they have like green turnbacks or something on their French blue coats, if even that. And so those would be the Irish Republicans. They believe in the Republic and Age of Reason, and down with the church and that kind of thing. Where if you were a strong Catholic or a monarchist Irishman, you fled that, and some of them get taken to Britain. Some of them because the British don't sort of know what to do with these guys because they really don't want them in Britain, both because it's illegal to have foreign troops in Britain, and these guys are like not anti-English, but anti-Hanoverian. One battalion gets sent out to the Caribbean to sort of fight out here, and mostly end up dying of diseases. So pitiful waste of that. But and they also one of the Irish units that the French had already sent out here way back whenever switch over to the, they're sort of on a losing end anyways. They switch over to English service and get put together. There's a whole story of what they call the wild geese of the Irish. And so eventually the British are paying for and equipping anti-British forces fighting the French. So yes. Oh, we have a bot on YouTube there. Okay, the Duke of Edinburgh, but that becomes his title as the consort to the Queen. But what's the family? Oh, Battenberg. That becomes Mountbatten. Mountbatten. That's the name. I know these names, but I get blocked on it. It's Mountbatten was the sort of family dukedom, if you will, but it's the Duke of Edinburgh as being the Queen's husband as the title. Meaning that's a royal title of the crown that can be lent out to somebody else. Acts of Union, okay, yeah, but both the Irish and Scottish were incorporated into the United Kingdom by the Acts of Union. Yes, but Plastic Gangster, there was a Scottish army and an Irish army and an English army. And by acts of parliament, they were limited to various sizes and in each one. So the Scottish army was its own thing, or I'm circling Ireland. But the Scottish army, there was the Act of Union of Parliament. But to this day, Scotland still has a different legal system than the rest of Britain. And I don't know when, but at some point, the Scottish Army is incorporated into the centralized British Army, but through to the end of the 18th century, they're on their own establishment, their own hierarchy, their own everything. So, as well as the Irish Army. And now you will find officers giving up their English commission for a Scottish commission, back and forth, and all this stuff. But they're their own establishments, their own chain of command, their own completely separate everything, basically. So it's a lot more. I don't know if Arno's around still to kill the bot over on YouTube. Okay. No, King Charles, not Andrew. Andrew was the naughty one who is not. Is actually half Greek, although his father was also half Danish. Yes, I don't know the details of all of the Battenbergs before they changed their name to Mountbatten. I think sometime around World War I, changed their name around. The British royal family, most European families are probably best described as European. Well, yes, that's quite true. In the modern sense of the word, I would say. You could look as there's, I think, some guy in Australia who would be the Plantagenet heir on a, if you actually look like bloodlines down with that, actually would be the Plantagenet heir, but the Plantagenets lost for the crown. Then you have various Stuart claimants, one being who would be the current king of Bavaria if you had a king of Bavaria. And he would definitely be a European. Then you have some old Scottish families that are the Stuarts in Britain, and that would have a claim to the throne if you're not casting your net out into Europe. And they're mostly all, we'll call it British, Scottish and Irish. So yeah, but realize another name for World War I could be the Cousins War. Realize that, people. Have you looked at the three of them together? I think it was Willie who said something like, if Grandmama were only alive, this wouldn't be happening. Maybe that was George. I don't know. But you have the three cousins, George, Wilhelm, and Nicholas, that all have, and cousins in the sense, not like in some royal sense, oh, we're cousins 5 times removed or something. No, they all had the same grandmother. 2 of them through the matriarchal line and 1 through the patriarchal line, if you will, but they all had the same grandmother, Queen Victoria, of that. And at that point, Queen Victoria's heirs, well, Germany hardly counts, but Queen Victoria's heirs ruled much of the world. If you talk the British Empire and the Russian Empire, with Germany there. So yeah, the Tsar and George especially, absolutely plastic gangster. Must be sent to the 1/3 more compliment. 4 years. Queen Victoria was grandmother or closely related to almost every. Well, yeah, and that if you watch, I like watching good historical dramas, and if what is it, Young Victoria or whatever, and you sort of see how whatever the King of Belgium was really sort of marriage brokering the family around to various royal families and getting everything out there. Hello, Thomas K. Heard if you got at least one European ancestor go back in time to around 8,000 years ago. You're all related to some famous European kings or queens back then. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are. The one person that they do know that there's huge numbers of people related to is they can do some genetic test of Mongolians and related to Genghis Khan and the family and his family tree, because they had huge numbers of concubines that produced huge numbers of heirs. And so it's something literally like, I don't know, like 1/3, or they estimate something like 1/3 of Mongolians or more are all descendants of Genghis Khan nowadays, at least by one ancestor going back to Genghis Khan. Not all like male descendants or anything like that, but all through that they're able to do that. Should watch. Oh, Fall of Eagles. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I mean, it's been 20 plus years, but it's a great series. Yes, and I've also watched I, Claudius. That is very good. And I've read I, Claudius and Claudius the God, the Robert Graves books that he wrote that they based the series on. Well, I'm going to grab a Coke and be right back. Well, we're going to also end this episode. It's gone on a bit long, but we'll be back next time. I want to thank everybody who's made it this far. I hope my talks are interesting. So see you next time.